You know, it's one thing to hear of COVID-19, and it's another thing to have the virus living in your body. Dr. Edward Addison was living a very healthy life in the UK where he resides and never expected to come down with the deadly coronavirus. Good news is he survived, and I had the pleasure of having a virtual meeting with him as he shared on his ordeal with us. Take a look. Hello, Dr. Edward. How are you doing today?
How are you, Angel? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, sir. How's it been?
It's been fine over here. We're all on lockdown, as I presume you are over there.
Yes, we are. How's the weather in the UK?
Well, it's rather deceptively cold, even though the sun is out.
Oh, cool. That's good. I see from the way you're dressed.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't look like anyone that just survived the hit from a coronavirus. That's why we're having this interview. We want you to share your story. How did you get to know that you had the virus, you were infected, and how did you go from there?
Well, first and foremost, I was around someone who, I was with someone for 3 consecutive days who was very close, who was tested and had COVID-19. And so after the 3 days of being around that person, I started to feel a little bit under the weather and woozy, you know. Then I heard the next day they had COVID-19. Wow. And then the symptoms then followed. I had a headache, a raging, a real thumping headache, a nasty cough. And the first week wasn't too bad, to tell you the truth. And they say that sometimes this virus, you know, can be deceptive because the first week you seem okay. And then it either goes one of 2 ways the second week. Yeah. And so the second week went really poorly. I took a dive in terms of having a temperature that was 102 degrees.
At this point, have you gone to the hospital yet?
I hadn't gone to the hospital when things started to get bad initially. But after some time, I thought, I called here in London, you call, you call a number up, and I called them up and they asked about my symptoms and said, can you manage them? And I said, I'm fine. He said, how was my breathing? Although my breathing was labored, I really didn't want to go in the hospital. I felt there are people who might need the ventilator more than me. Yeah, and then one thing, I wanted to trust God through it also as
that's why you didn't go to the hospital immediately. You were putting your faith to work. Interesting.
But when my symptoms got bad, I went to what we call the accident and emergency triage. Now, triage is where they assess your symptoms to see whether they take you into hospital and put you on a ventilator or not. Okay. So they assessed my symptoms the first day. My oxygen levels were reasonably okay. I had a X-ray on my chest to make sure my lungs were in good condition. They gave me a caveat, which was that if it gets worse, come back in. So that I went in on a Friday, and between the Saturday and the Tuesday, it got worse. I started to
about
have
3 more days. 3 more days into it, okay.
3 days, I started to have bouts of coughing where I was vomiting, and they were prolonged bouts of coughing. So I went back in the Tuesday after the Friday. I'd been back in and mentioned I was here on Friday. Okay. They took a few more tests, which was different. They did an ECG, which was a heart test. They also did a test on my lungs to make sure there was no crackling sounds. Yeah. And then, different from Friday, they took a blood test from an artery, which would give them better readings of my oxygen levels.
I see. So we're quite familiar with the procedures and all the symptoms and everything, thanks to the news all around the world. What I want to know is, what effect did it have on your mind? What was going through your mind while all of this was happening? What were you thinking?
Well, the issue is, fear is the biggest enemy, isn't it, in this situation? Yeah. I mean, when you hear so much news about a disease that is killing people, And I pretty much keep myself well informed. And you've heard of pandemics before.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to go with a pandemic. So you keep your mind stable. And I think the key thing was my faith as a Christian. You get a point. Kept me sane. But there were a couple of days where it was really raging. I had a very bad temperature. I was, my fever was high. My breathing wasn't too good at that point in time. And my appetite had gone. My sinuses were on fire. And you're just having every conceivable symptom. You know,
at this point, you had to just hold on to God and,
that's where
put your foot down.
God and realize that your faith in God is your most important thing through this situation.
In a few words, what are you going to say to people going through this phase, or people that are healthy right now, but that fear has been instilled in them by what they're seeing in the media? In a few words.
Well, first and foremost, as Christians, God has not given us a spirit of fear. He's given us a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind. The reality of it itself, as someone first said, that faith is not the absence of fear. It is the superposition of trusting God in the face of fear. So the ability to trust God in spite of what we see around us, the circumstances, and in spite of what we are going through. And so there's situations that pass over us, and there's situations we have to pass through. And the ones we pass through are what make us stronger. And so the whole idea was that holding on to God through this tragedy and coming out at the other end has made me stronger for myself and made me a living testimony of the grace of God through this situation.
That is absolutely powerful. So if you're watching right now, what the doctor is saying is you put your faith in God, but still do what the doctors are saying. Still take precautions, still cover your face, keep the social distance for now, and all of that. Thank you so much, Dr. Edward, for taking out time to share your experience with us. There's so much I want to ask you, but time limits us. So we're grateful for your time today. Hopefully we get to talk more as time goes on and in the future.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir.
It's a pleasure.